Welcome to the first episode of Fight Club, a She Overcomes mini-series. What's the first rule of Fight Club? You don't talk about Fight Club, right? This podcast series is dedicated to saying the quiet parts out loud and having honest conversation about complex topics. Topics that impact women, topics that impact our families, our relationships. This is the place where we want to have a conversation about maybe the things that we're thinking. And like I said, we're saying the quiet part out loud. So as a reminder, She Overcomes educates and equips women to overcome the imposter syndrome while biohacking the cyclical planning, goal syncing, and lived experience of the rhythms of our lives. We help women optimize time, energy, creativity, and focus in business and in life. So I'm doing this solo podcast today because I wanted to introduce our new series. If you've been listening for any amount of time, I've kind of flirted with this idea of Fight Club because, you know, I found myself in this space of leadership development and professional development and learning and training high capacity women. And as I have continued to do this research, it's been really interesting to me based on the other thought leaders that I'm connecting to, based on the issues that, that organizations like Forbes has reported on. And so upon the research, upon the work that we're doing, something that has continued to come, I guess you could say, at me is that, and actually it was a leader out on the West Coast who talked about most leadership development programs have been written by men for men. This is not because men are bad. And I'm not a woman who leans into this camp. I actually don't think men are the problem. I think women and men are created equally powerful, but distinctly different. You know, it's, I read recently, women are not little men. Like, I'm not just a little version of a man. Like, I'm biologically just a different person. And so in the research of what we're doing, when this man said that leadership development has been written by men for men, and it got me really curious because I have been researching the imposter syndrome, as most of you guys know, and it's been recorded in Forbes. Over 75% of women executives identify that they regularly struggle with the imposter syndrome. And if I can be really honest with you, I hate that term. I don't like using the term because I don't actually think it's intellectually comprehensive or even to a degree like honest. I don't think it's actually a syndrome. However, I have to use that term because right now, modern language, as soon as I say it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or those people who, have been in and around this space, they get it right away. But in the research, around the imposter syndrome and the 4 mindsets, I am really convinced that the imposter syndrome is truly rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of looking stupid, fear of not knowing enough, fear of being not educated enough to be in the room, fear of being second guessed. Like, I really believe the mistrust that triggers a lot of what happens with the imposter syndrome is rooted in fear. And I can tell you this is that, like, as we've continued to research, I think this is actually a pretty pervasive issue for actually both men and women. But something that we're looking at is, why is the female mind responding to leadership development, to being put in places of leadership the way that it is? Like, why is my big question. And one of the actually Fortune and Gallup in 2024 both released this study and reported on this, that 44% of women feel burnt out. And they're saying that this burnout is contributing to high turnover, that the burnout is leading them to look at other jobs, to look in other directions. And they're not even necessarily always looking for taking a role with more work or with a better title. They're actually, because of this burnout and exhaustion, they're looking for something that will offer them freedom. And so what's happening is, just stick with me here for a second. We've got 75% of women, female executives in particular, saying that they're daily struggling with the imposter syndrome. 44% of women who are looking at quitting their jobs in the U.S. are saying it's because they feel burnt out and overwhelmed, and they can't keep up with the demands of their family, of health, of career. And so good companies are losing good people. And guess what? This is costing U.S. businesses over $1 trillion annually. It's costing a ton of money to large businesses, small businesses, because people are not secure in the job force. So let's go back to this problem with women. And what I can tell you is virtually no productivity or professional development courses or tools support the biorhythmic differences in women. And let me tell you what that means. So women and men both operate on the circadian rhythm. Do you know what that is? The circadian rhythm is that biological clock every single person has, that where if you have a healthy circadian rhythm, you're waking up in the morning. A lot of people are very active right away. You can work out or whatever. A lot of people have a peak time of work in mid morning. You get hungry around noon, right? This is the cycle that the common work day is set up for. We go home, we eat, whatever, and then we get tired 9, 10. If you're lucky, if you're not someone like me who lays in bed and thinks about all the things I did wrong that day, but. So that is your circadian rhythm. It's a 24-hour cycle that we all have. Here's a fascinating thing, is that women have a secondary rhythm. Did you know that? So a man's body regenerates every 24 hours. If a man, let's think about that from a year. So if we look at a man and we're looking at his biological clock, he's planting a seed, he's working, he's harvesting, and he's getting up and he's resting and he's doing it all over again every day. So a man has a 24-hour cycle to harvest. In agriculture, of course, we know that that's a 12-month cycle, right? That you plant, you rest the land, and then you plant, and then you cultivate and you nurture, and there's a bunch of things that we do, and then we harvest, and then we rest the land. Well, men are doing that in every 24 hours. Women are not. Women are actually on this. They are, but they're, in addition to that, they have what's called this infradian rhythm, where we're regenerating, we're harvesting once a month. So the first, let's just say the first 7 days of this cycle is actually when a woman's brain, her left hemisphere and her right hemisphere, are connected more than they will be for the whole month. From a development standpoint, that's where I should be strategizing. That's where I should be really taking a look at my core values, for example, and creating a plan and reviewing, looking at data, looking at analytics from the last month, looking at the KPIs and saying, are we on track? Are we doing the right thing? Where are we at? What are the numbers saying? Because this is that session, that time, that first, 3 to 7 days typically is when there's a high analytical increase because of where the estrogen is at in that woman's body. So it's totally fascinating. And what has happened this last year is at She Overcomes in particular is we've started to take a look at this and study it and say okay, wait. So women are saying they don't feel secure. Women are saying, and these are high capacity hustlers. I'm not talking about just the everyday insecurity experience. I'm talking about high performing, high capacity women who are doing it all. And they're the ones saying something's off, and I couldn't tell you necessarily what it is, but it's not quite right. So This is actually in the last year, you guys, this is where we're leaning into. And here's why I'm choosing this topic as our Fight Club first conversation is it seems kind of weird to talk about hormones and the body as it relates to professional development. But here's why I'm going to be that person and say, no, this needs to be a part of our conversation. It might make, we don't have to, I don't like walk into a boardroom and say, I'd love to talk to everybody about my hormones and where I'm at today. And here's my luteal cycle. Like that's 110% not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we need to be paying attention to the biorhythmic cycles that our bodies naturally have. Women are biologically different from men. That's why that's just a fact. Biologically, we're just different. And so when we start looking at these problems and we start looking at how much it's costing companies, how much burnout, I think if I remember correctly, and actually I'm going to do this, burnout costs a company when someone leaves and she says, I'm exhausted, I can't do this or whatever, whatever the thing is. And here's the thing. A lot of people are silent quitters. A lot of people aren't going to say to you, I'm exhausted and this is unreasonable. They're going to say, I'm moving in a new direction and I'm so excited. You know what I mean? And so 80%, here's what it is. 80% of quiet quitters cite burnout as a leading factor in them leaving their jobs. 83% of women suffer from this additional work-related stress. And here's why employers should care. If you are in HR, if you are in a position where you're looking at benefits packages and you're looking at retention and culture and how you retain your best talent, guess what? And you already probably know this. Overall replacement cost for an employer can range from 90 to 200%. Investing in women, which probably make up 50% of your workforce, is a good idea. So our burnt out quiet quitter salary, let's pretend for a moment that the burnt out quiet quitter salary is $60,000. The replacement cost to the employer is going to be between $30,000 to $45,000. The overall loss to your company is $54,000 to $120,000 for one person. Now, do you work in an industry where there's high turnover? I guarantee you, if you look at your KPIs, if you look at how much this is costing you in hard and soft costs, this is a big deal. And this is why I think we need to have a conversation about investing our dollars in a way that's most meaningful into retaining the best talent. And so clearly something's off. Clearly something's wrong. And so that is where I will tell you, that is where we have been doing deep research on focusing on biohacking the circadian and the infradian rhythms, because it's unique to biological women, and the tasks, SMART goals, mindsets, the leadership personality types alongside all of the other things that people are doing. These are the things that we're actually focusing on. And so I'm really excited. Next month, actually, we're going to be at one of the local universities doing a deep dive on this with their women in leadership, and it's their entrepreneurial women. And so we're going to be looking at how do we goal sync given the secondary clock? What do we need to do so that women aren't constantly second guessing, aren't constantly feeling like they're always behind? And I think I had shared this a while ago. I had this boss and I really liked it. I honestly, he was so kind and honoring and respectful, and I respected him a lot. And when I interviewed for that job, it's a few years ago by now, when I interviewed for that job, I was 100% confident. I'm I know I can do this thing, so I came in guns blazing, here's what we're going to do, blah, 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 blah. And then as I started working at that organization, everyone, this is a felt experience everywhere, you don't really know who's connected to who. And and you can get that insecurity and you're like, I do know what I'm doing, right? I know what I'm doing, right? You know what I mean? Like that second guessing. And I remember having a review with him because we had some tough blows and no traction. Like it was just, it felt like everything I thought I knew wasn't working. And it was tough. It was really tough on me because I remember just thinking like, I'm not a quitter. I'm not lazy, like all of these things. And I remember sitting down with him and he just said to me, Melanie, when I met you, you knew exactly where we were going and something happened and you lost your confidence. Where did you lose that? And to be honest, here's what I'm going to tell you. To be honest, I don't know that I can pinpoint where I lost it, but that question absolutely shifted the way that I saw myself in that company. And it wasn't even, I'm not even going to say it was about that company. I realized and I began to realize I don't know that I was struggling with self-confidence. I actually think I was really struggling with worth, with my self-worth. And if you've listened to, our other podcasts, you've heard us talk that confidence is an outside thing. Like it's Malcolm Gladwell repopularized that idea that if you do 10,000 hours, you're an expert. Like, congratulations, you graduated expert academy or whatever. And so we have this idea we're going to get our 10,000 hours in and now I'm an expert. Well, what happens? Like, I'll use media as an example. I'm not thinking of one in particular person. Like this is not prescriptive. I'm gossip. This is just an example. Let's just say someone comes into media and she is an anchor and she gets her 10,000 hours in as an anchor at one place. Times change, calendars change, companies change. She makes a shift to another company. You pick her up, you pluck her out of company A, and then you drop her into company B. She will execute tasks with excellence. She knows how to do a job. But once you change an environment, it actually has a pull on someone's identity where they second guess. They know how to execute a job, but now she's in a new environment where people don't know her. They might not trust her yet. Trust is built. Trust is earned. And so they might second guess her. She might have a colleague who's going through some life stuff and they project all their life stuff onto her. And I don't know if you guys know what this feels like, but I have been the person who's projected my life issues onto people. And I've also been projected on. And people's fears have been projected on me, and the weight of their failure or success has been on my shoulders. And it's an entirely different game. Regardless of my level of self-confidence, which is external, if I am not rooted deeply in my own self-worth, we have a problem, Houston. And the thing about women, and this is where I was really grateful this year, you guys, I went to, it's called the ILT Academy, and it's this accelerator for new businesses, because as I started unpacking some of the research I was coming into, it occurred to me, we have to create a digital platform. We 1000% have to create a digital platform, because in order for us to do this right, we have to digitize what we're doing, because I think there's going to be a lot of women who are saying, yes, I feel this disconnect. Like the disconnect I felt at that company where I was like guns blazing, going to do it. And then I lost myself. I don't know where I lost myself. I lost myself in the shadow of someone else's success. I lost myself and I don't exactly know what it was, but somehow I disappeared and I didn't know where I went in light of my role at that company. And so I'm just going to tell you, I was doing this accelerator. And through the accelerator, over and over and over again, it seemed honestly redundant and not childish, but it just seemed a little like, in a way, simple. And isn't that how innovation works? Can I just say that sometimes it's just these like simple aha moments? The instructor would have us write down the problem. What's the problem you solve? Imposter syndrome. But as I was doing it, I'm like, that's actually not just the imposter syndrome. There's a lot happening here. And so you write it all down and you do these feedbacking sessions. Well, then he has us we storyboard it. storyboard, problem to solution. And here's what I repeatedly kept drawing every time I drew on that piece of paper. I drew, and it's going to sound funny, and but we had we had 3 minutes. So just bear with me. It's not like we had hours to make a beautiful painting. So it was boom, boom, boom. Here it is. I kept drawing a woman's head disconnected from her body, which was triggering fear, anxiety, burnout, all of these problems, right? Because there was a disconnect. And tell me if you've ever felt this, please. I'd love to say, drop it in the chat. I don't know how that works, but I always hear podcasters say that. Drop it in the chat. Anyway, so have you ever, here's my question to you. Have you ever, as a woman, as a man, honestly, and this is not a gender, this is not like a sex thing here. This is like a personhood thing. Have you ever been sitting across the table from someone, having a conversation, nodding, oh yeah, me too. And while you're engaging and your lips are moving, and your body is in that place with them, your body is nodding, your handshaking, whatever, your mind is 7,000 miles away. Thinking about groceries, thinking about having to call your mom, thinking about the text you forgot to respond to, thinking about the email that you keep forgetting. Do you ever do that where your body's in one place, but your mind, your head is so far away from that? And I realized that disconnect, that in a sense dissociation, is what I think is triggering a lot of issues. Is that there's and I'll tell you, one of a few women now in our small group cohorts, we do an exercise around personal, peace and rest, and allowing our mind to, it's active rest. It's from a really beautiful book called Sacred Rhythms of Rest. And I've had a few people say it was really hard for me to be in my body because it didn't feel safe. It was really hard for me to be in my body and be present because so many other things need to get done. And so there's this literal disconnect. And I venture to guess there's a large percent of us that feel that way, that there's so much to get done. And so we're never, I used to have a mentor back in my 20s, and she would say, be where your hands are, clap, where are your hands right now? Be here. And I'm like a total futurist. I'm a visionary. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a creative. I'm thinking about where this is going to be in 5 and 10 years. I'm thinking about that. I have a very difficult time reeling everything back into the here and now. And so to bring this full circle, what I was discovering and what problem that I realized I think that we needed to solve was helping women be where they're at, helping women whatever season you're in, whatever area in life you're in, you have got to embrace that season. You cannot be in your chapter 2, just graduating, let's just say graduating college, comparing yourself to a woman in her 50s who has had an amazing career, and look at her and be like, why is she so awesome and I suck? You're in a totally different season, right? You're in your planting season, and she is harvesting. A lot of work went into that harvest, a lot of work. And so the way in which we get women, so here's the question. How do I get in my body? Well, you have to understand your body. It's so simple. It's so simple, but it's not. I'm going to tell a joke and then I'm going to wrap. In a second, this guy that I podcast, actually, I think he's a pastor, and he's a leader of a large organization and movement. And he always tells jokes, and he said that, this man came upon a bottle and rubbed it, and a genie came out, and the genie was like, what do you want? Anything you can have. You have one big wish. And this man thought, and he's like, I want you to build a bridge from the West Coast, he was in Seattle, from Seattle all the way to Hawaii. I want to drive to Hawaii, and I want you to build a bridge so that we don't have to fly back and forth anymore. And the genie sat for a second and kind of hemmed and hawed. He's like, that actually sounds kind of complicated. What else do you want? The guy sat for a second and he goes, I want to understand the female mind. And the genie laughs and he goes, so do you want that bridge like concrete? Like what kind of materials are we talking about? And I think that's like encompasses the problem. Like I think that, it's part of it for sure, is that as we think about how do you connect the mind and the body, it's a process. And it's a process that I actually think is a conversation and is appropriate to have in appropriate places, etc. But as we think about building culture, as we think about building safe places for our employees, as we think about retention, not even just from like $1 trillion. I don't even think I know how many zeros that is. Like I'm embarrassed to say that, but like when you think of how much it's costing the American company to retain employees, and 80% of women are saying, I'm burnt out and I'm disconnected and I'm not in a good place. These are well-educated, confident women who really maybe are just looking at someone else's harvest and they're in their seed season, wondering if they're ever going to get there, and it just feels too much and like there's too much stacked against them. We have a problem. And so I am excited. I obviously, I'm super excited. I'm excited about biohacking. I'm excited about how we connect it. And I wouldn't be a salesperson if I wasn't also pitching. We're going to do a deep dive on this at the Metamorphosis Conference in March. We have got different specialists coming in from a variety of places, coming in to have conversations around how we train, educate, equip leaders. How do we help women optimize time, optimize energy, creativity, and focus in business and in life? And so if this is interesting to you, I wish it was a little spicier. I feel like my first Fight Club should be like way spicier and I don't know, like a little inappropriate. It's not. Like I wish it was. But sometimes the conversations we need to have the most are just really simple, open conversations on how we embolden and equip people to just be their best selves, to just lean into spaces where they feel like they can lead uniquely with the skill sets they have, not trying to be someone else, not trying to have to morph into a leadership role that looks differently. I just want to be a woman leading as a woman, and I want to empower more women to do the same. So save the date. Metamorphosis, a She Overcomes conference is happening March 27th, 2025. It's going to be held at the Sinclair. You guys, we're going to have a panel of men. I'm actually so excited about the men who are on this panel. They come from a broad variety of backgrounds. We've got a city commissioner and venture capitalist and venture studio co-founder and those in IT. I mean, just a broad range of people. And then we'll have medical professionals from local organizations. And we actually have, let me see this. We have got, I'm going to look at her title. One of our speakers actually is, and I'm going to actually have her on the podcast soon, Tasha Ulmer. So she's North Dakota's only Menopause Society certified practitioner in the state of North Dakota. And I'm so excited about her work and what she's doing, because she is helping women who are more mature in their season. Just having some open conversations about, how to be in your body as your body is rapidly changing and the seasons are changing, and doesn't have to be weird or awkward. It's just the reality, and so, Tammy Miller, 39th Lieutenant Governor of North Dakota, is going to be there. We've got just a host of people who are so great. So if you want to sign up, and you do, for the event, you can go to sheovercomes.co/events. You can check us out on LinkedIn. Instagram, I'm not good at socialing right now, so my apologies that the feed is a little slow. We're working on that. Check us out on Facebook, but definitely if you're an organization that is passionate about your employees and wants to meet them where they're at, I would really encourage you to jump in, become a sponsor, join us in what feels like a really exciting, honestly, I'm so excited. I think that this year there's going to be a lot of changes in the world, and there already are, but this is a year of overcoming. This is a year of empowering people to be who they are and just be their best selves, whatever that looks like. And of course, my passion is women. So come to our event, check us out on social media. We are going to have a handful. We've already got all of our number of our podcast guests scheduled through March now, so like keep listening. But thank you so much for joining me on this first episode of Fight Club, a She Overcomes mini-series where we say the quiet parts out loud. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.